Binghamton Now, live studio. Vasquez, political commentator, former congressional candidate, possible future congressional candidate. Good to have you with us.
It's always great to be here with you and your listeners, and I love the way you slipped that in.
Hey, coming attractions.
Absolutely.
And that way it keeps people listening.
Oh, true enough.
Because if there's a need for an announcement of anything sometime in the future, maybe it would happen here.
Oh, I'm sure it would.
So
You'd be my first choice.
I was going to say, I always say the road to Congress runs through the Binghamton Now studio.
It should.
Yeah. Well, we've had of course Maurice Hinchey in the studio back when he was in Congress.
Mm-hmm.
We've had Richard Hanna in the studio, and you heard earlier this week by phone. So I think people, either when they're actually in Congress or when they're aspiring to Congress or some other office, they understand this is helpful in getting out their story and their views. And I think that's one of the great things that we do with this program.
Well, no, you reach the people, and that's the important thing. People need to know what's going on, and I'm glad that we have you in this program to have that forum. So that's always important.
Everybody's voice is listened to on this program.
Absolutely.
All are welcome. On a planet of 7 billion people, there is not a single one who's been excluded.
It takes a little while to get to them all, though.
That's right. In time we will. At any rate, we're going to talk about your proposal regarding congressional pay, and we'll talk about that in a moment. First,
Sure.
though, I know you were interested. I don't think because you were traveling, you didn't have a chance to hear what Congressman Hanna said when he joined us this week, but I know you've been following Congressman Hanna and some of his views on various issues, including his decision this week to vote in favor of legislation or see to it that the government would not have a partial shutdown. That was the latest in a series of shutdowns or possible shutdowns of the government, and unfortunately, it seems a common refrain at one point over the last several years. We've had these things crop up. Of course, seem to kind of famously start going back way to when Newt Gingrich shut down, they say, shut down the government. And remember how that wound up with the classic New York Daily News front page, the caricature of a baby Newt crying in his diaper. So, but it's all part of what we've come to expect now with the federal government, occasional threats and sometimes actual shutdowns, partial shutdowns of the government. What did you think of move this week and going along with this effort to keep the government moving and not to, in effect, defund Planned Parenthood, which has been a controversial issue, especially in the last few months?
Well, Congressman Hanna has been, the last couple of weeks have been emblematic of the way he looks at representing the people. And it's been torturous for many of us. Great example. We see that just on the Planned Parenthood voting. He came out beforehand, attacked the entire Republican Party, the leadership, everyone except himself on that issue. A week later, when Speaker Boehner decided to resign, he comes out and says, well, he's such a great guy. Well, I'm sorry, a week earlier you just said that he was part of political theater and inaction, and he was the reason for it. You can't go both sides. Why are you saying both things? We just saw that in 2014, when I was running for Congress, and Assemblywoman Tenney was running for Congress against Representative Hanna, we were speaking about the VA. It was a major issue, 2013, 2014. Mr. Hanna, who has done a lot for our vets, I won't discount that, said nothing about the Binghamton VA Center. Yesterday, he puts out a news release jumping on the bandwagon saying, hey, look at what I'm doing here. I've been involved in the VA getting a new spot. Where were you then? Because I look back in Google and I searched this. Do you know who's the only elected official in Congress who's actually speaking about the VA Center? Schumer, not Representative Hanna. Why is he putting out a news release about it, suddenly saying, I'm so involved in this, except you never told anyone. No one knew about it. but you want the credit for it now. I'm sorry, we can't have a representative who goes on both sides. It's part of the reason why I put together the Congressional Pay Act.
And tell us about this proposed legislation. You've handed me a copy of what you would propose. And first, a little background, why you think this is a very important issue.
Well, I think it's important because we need accountability. Matter of fact, that's the name of it. It's called the Congressional Accountable Pay Act. We see our representatives there taking positions on both sides, like Representative Hanna has done. We've seen our leaders have inaction, which I agree. We're seeing, and everyone agrees, Congress has about a 13% approval rate. We all agree. Congress is not doing its job, not to the fullest extent at the very least. And what's one of the best ways to motivate someone? I know in many jobs, if someone said, your pay is about to be cut by 2/3, you'd have a fit. You'd do something about that.
It would get your attention.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to get their attention. I have a 3-page, simple English proposal, because Congress is not the only one who can make a law. Matter of fact, they didn't make the Obamacare law. Other people wrote it. We can write laws as well. And in 3 pages, I cover the fact of how to make Congress accountable for a budget, when they break the laws, when they break their ethics codes, and when they violate the Constitution. We have the ways, the means by which to make them accountable and take their pay from 5 times what the average person in America is making and bring it down to about what everybody is making, and that make sure that they have to pay back every dime. In fact, if we had this bill 8 years ago, we would have saved the American taxpayers $400 million.
Do you think any current member of Congress, anybody who is a member of the House or any in the Senate would ever give this serious consideration?
Absolutely not. They don't want to do this. They don't want to have term limits either. They want to make sure that they remain in power and they get reelected as easily as possible and get as much pay as they want. What was it? I forget the member who was recently saying they get paid too little at $175,000 a year. I'm pretty sure most of us would like to get paid $175,000 a year to just argue and sit on our butts and not get much done. But I don't agree with that. And you know what? It doesn't matter if they like it. It doesn't matter if they want it. If we have enough people who say, but we agree on it, because we are the ultimate power. They represent us. If our voices are out there saying, hey, I've seen the bill, I want this bill passed, put it into law, they will do it.
If people listening want to see the actual proposed language that you've put forward, that you've written, is there a way that they can access that?
Absolutely. They can go on to my website. It's www.mvass.com. And the proposal it's under the Congressional Accountable Pay Act. There is a PDF they can download for themselves. It's 3 pages. Simple English, anyone can understand it, and it works. It takes care of retirement, it takes care of their base pay, and it also, by the way, it also rewards them in that if they actually do their job, if they pass the budget, if they're doing their job, they get to get the full base pay of $175,000. It only takes into account when they don't do their job, they don't get paid.
We know in real life incentives tend to work. I mean, in private enterprise, even in Major League Sports, incentives can be very valuable in helping people to perform to the best of their ability, or sometimes even exceed what they thought was possible. So maybe it could work for Congress.
Well, I can tell you that the plan that we've been using so far, which is allowing them to just increase their pay every time they would vote on it, and re-electing them blindly without looking at their records, that hasn't been effective. That's not working. You know, they have a 13% approval rate. There's a reason for it. So maybe it's time to do something different. And I think this is one of the steps that we can do to hit them in their pockets where they're actually paying attention.
Our guest in the studio is the political commentator Michael Vasquez, who ran for a time for the Republican nomination for Congress in the 22nd District last year. Did you have any regret about that decision last year to suspend your campaign after working for some months to try to secure the Republican nomination, or you think that under the circumstances that was the best choice?
Yeah, it was a year of my life at that point. A full year that I had been working on running for Congress, and I did a great job. We took before I started in 2013, absolutely no one had any clue about the 22nd race. It was a given that it would be won by the incumbent, and no one would even talk about it. By the time I got done, it was being discussed in the halls of Congress. It was on national media. There was attention, and thankfully that helped Assemblywoman Tenney to move forward. To say that there was no ego involved on my side after putting that much effort into it, personal sacrifices that I made for it, of course I felt that. But I made the decision because I believed that Assemblywoman Tenney was the best choice, and that she had the ability, both in the access to the media and access to funding, that I didn't have, and had the same views I have that most of the people in the 22nd District have about how to move our country forward. And my goal from day one was to make sure that we got the best representation in Congress possible. And she got within 2,000 votes. So that says something right there. And according to the New York Post, Representative Hanna is running scared right now because he's afraid of her, he's afraid of me. And he has reason to be. His record supports he should be challenged.
Claudia Tenney also was on the program this week after Congressman Hanna was on, and she is continuing to give every indication that she is giving serious consideration to running for the seat next year. If she chooses to be in the race, if she chooses to formally enter and attempt to challenge Richard Hanna, will that be a factor in any decision you choose to make for the race in 2016?
Absolutely. I won't turn this into a three-way race for the Republican ticket. I don't think that would be a benefit to the voters. I believe, especially when Assemblywoman Tenney and myself are so closely matched on what we believe, and we stand for the same issues, which is important because Representative Hanna really doesn't stand for any issues. He's kind of like Barbara Fiala in a way. She was handpicked from Cuomo, and well, there isn't much to show there for that, and I can get into that. Especially one thing I would say to everyone about that, Miss Fiala, in August, I was the first one to ask about combating heroin in the nation, in Broome County, in the southern tier. I asked Fiala, I asked Fred Akshar, and I got a response from Akshar. Her campaign said nothing. 30 days later, she was asked again by the major news media in the area. And she said, she has a plan, it's a great plan. Well, go to her website. There is no plan. She doesn't even mention the word heroin on her, combating heroin, drug abuse, nothing. She has 3 ideas, none of them are a plan, and she has nothing there. I have to say, that's the kind of politics, local, and now looking at Mr. Hanna on federal, we're not getting answers from some of the candidates. I don't want to muddy that water. I want to make sure we get clarity. I want to get the best people in.
Michael Vasquez, to be continued. Always a pleasure.